All right, welcome back to the second video in the WorldViewer training series. This one is going to be basic creating a comp. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and adjust my window here so that I can see more. And I'm going to adjust my property window as well. What I did to start a new composition is File, New, and it opened up a blank composition. By default, you're always going to have an Earth layer here called Earth HD. So we will work with that in this chapter. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set up our main menu chapter. So I'm going to do this by uh, clicking on the chapter 0. And I like to name my chapters accordingly. So I have created a naming convention to make it easy for myself in future scripting. And what I've done for that is I use ch underscore to indicate it's a name of a chapter. And so this chapter is going to be main menu, and I do not put spaces or underscores in between my words in the chapter name. Then in this particular use case, I'm going to do underscore 02. And I'm doing that because this composition is going to continue to grow with our WorldViewer training series. And so if you have downloaded the composition and are working with it and you need to know what video to reference to get a feature that you've found in the video, you can do that by looking at the chapter properties and seeing what video that chapter was created in, or what video that chapter was built, or what video that particular clip was created in. And so everything will end in the number of the video. Okay. So what we've got here now that if I click out, you'll see up here our main menu name has changed. Okay. And it's a very good idea to storyboard your content ahead of time. You'll find it's a lot less frustrating because you're not having to redo things. So when you know the structure of everything, how it's going to be laid out ahead of time, it just makes it that much easier. So I actually am following a storyboard that I've created for today. And so I'm going to go ahead and name all of my chapters right off of the bat. So chapter 2 is where we're going to learn about geolocated pano bubbles. Okay, so I'm going to do chapter ch underscore geolocated panos. Okay, and this was created in video 2. So that is going to be our second chapter. Our third chapter is going to talk about picture in picture. So we'll do ch underscore pip underscore 02 for video 2. And our fourth chapter here is going to be playing an image sequence and how to use an image sequence. So we'll just call this our image sequence chapter. And that is all we're going to have for our chapter. So I'm not going to need this last chapter here yet. So I'm going to right click up here and I'm going to go to delete chapter. Okay. So let's start talking about our main menu chapter 1. In our main menu, I want to talk about a couple of things that are important when building. So first of all, when you load a chapter, so if I click this eyeball, which is how you can load chapters from the back end, when that eyeball becomes active and every clip inside of this column is going to load as soon as you load that chapter, unless you tell it specifically not to using scripting here under on play, everything is going to load. So it is pretty important that we don't use too many clips. And I recommend no more than 10 clips in a particular cell. Okay. And the higher resolution and the longer that those video clips are, the less clips that you should use. So if you're using super high resolution, 3D clips, you're going to want to make sure that you limit the number of clips, because what can happen is it can really slow down your processing power on your computer, which is why Elumenati's IGs are very highly specialized for use inside of these geodomes. Okay, now let's start building into chapter main menu now that we know our limitations here. And the first thing that we're going to do is we want to create a sky map of space. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to my space track. I'm going to right click and click on load new clip. From here, it wants to know what type of clip I'm using. 90% of the time, you're going to use either file, image sequence, or GUI. GUI would obviously be used when building a GUI, which we will talk about in our next video in the series, which is how to build a GUI. And so today we're going to be dealing mostly with file and image sequence, maybe a template here and there, but we'll dive into templates in more detail in a future series. So the first one I'm loading here is just a general file. It's going to be a JPEG, and so I am going to navigate in my content folder to where I have that located, which is in my space folder. And I have two particular files. I'm going to go ahead and use my All Sky 2 mass. That tends to be my favorite because it shows a little bit of the Milky Way in it. And this is going to be rendered out as a star map. So where this new clip pops up, now it knows what file I have. Now WorldViewer wants to know, how do you want to use this inside of your composition? And today we'll be going through these top four: the star map, Earth overlay, geolocated, and picture-in-picture. The rest of the media types will be discussed in future series. So because this is a star map, I'm going to use it as a star map. But what I want you to think of is WorldViewer is essentially two spheres: an inner sphere, which we currently have overlaid with an Earth that you see here on the screen, and an outer sphere. So you have one sphere that you're looking at the outer surface, and you have one sphere that you're looking at the inner surface. So the star map wraps your 360 imagery around that sphere that you would be looking at, like this star map. So when I click star map, you'll notice it shows up in the background. Okay, if I use my arrow keys, you can see it spin. All right, and there right is exactly that little bit of the Milky Way that I was talking about. Okay, and so right now I'm just using my arrow keys to spin. You'll notice that I hit the tab button to exit World Composer while I did that, because when I'm interacting with it, I want Composer closed. Okay, so I'm going to open Composer back up. We have our star map in, and it automatically is going to title that clip based on the name of the file that you used. Okay, if I wanted to change that clip, I could click Browse for File, and I could change that clip. Additionally, there's some options I have here for appearance, like type, area, position, orientation, and advanced. We'll go through a few of those as we're building today, but we don't need to manipulate any of those right now, so we're just going to continue on. So while we're on the discussion of sky maps, I want to make sure that we understand that, you know, I have it placed in space and I use the star map, so it could be a little confusing. But if we were to play, if we have a GeoDome theater or a portal or panorama, and we want to just play 360 video, that would also be rendered out as a sky map. And I could actually come here and hide the Earth, okay? And if this was a video in the background, we could play that. We could spin around and look at that video. We're using a JPEG right now, but we could also use a video. And we'll see more of how to interact with those 360 videos when we talk about geolocated panel bubbles, because when you geolocate a 360 panel bubble, it actually renders it as a sky map once you fly into it. So that'll make a little bit more sense once we get to that section, but I wanted to make sure that everyone understood you could use a 360 video here and it would also be considered a sky map. Okay, so what we're going to do now is I'm going to use a different Earth overlay for our Earth, okay? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back into the Earth cell, and even though this clip is here, and it's by default, it cannot be deleted, okay? That is just the way it was set by Elumenati's developers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right-click, and you'll notice that now that there's additional clips in here, there's some additional options, okay? I could save something as a template. I could hide it, right? So if I click hide, it's going to hide everything in there. If I click show, it's going to show everything in there. But what I want to do is load a new clip. So I'm going to click load new clip. And again, this particular clip is just going to be a JPEG. So I'm going to choose File, and I'm going to come to Earth Overlays. Okay. And I believe, let's see here, my blue marble is located here. So I like this blue marble. It shows the cloud layer. It's great when you're not laying something over it. I would use our particular earth layer if you were doing an image sequence over it. But in this particular use case, I'm going to choose blue marble because I just like the way it looks. Now, when I am telling WorldViewer how to render this, I want this to wrap the sphere in the center. So what we currently have as Earth. So we call that an Earth overlay. But again, this could be done with a 360 video if you wanted a 360 video that looked like a crystal ball, or if you were using a globe, a digital globe, or a GeoDome globe rather, then you would also be able to use Earth overlay for your 360 video. So I'm going to choose Earth overlay, and you'll notice that it overlaid our Earth layer. And the reason it did that is it goes in order. So the first clip is the furthest back. The second clip will lay on top of that, so on and so forth. So that is how the layering structure is here. If I wanted to show the other one, I could just turn the eyeball off. Okay. But if I don't want this one to show at all, I could use scripting to make this hide automatically when this chapter loads. Okay. And I'm not going to dive into scripting in this particular tutorial, but we will in future tutorials. Okay. So next, now that we have our earth layer on, okay, and rendered on, we can begin working on our next chapter. Because for the main menu, we're just going to have this here. And in future, we'll talk about how to script, but I'm just going to quickly, for the sake of making this work the way we want it to, I'm going to set a script to have the Earth spin like it would in a true reality. Okay, so now we've got the Earth automatically spinning. This is our main menu chapter. So when somebody comes in to experience it, this is what they're going to walk into. They're going to see Earth here with the sky map. It's going to be slowly spinning. And eventually, in our next video tutorial, when we talk about buoys, we'll talk about how to create the user interface here so they could interact. But we're going to move on to chapter 2, which is geolocated panel bubbles. Okay. And so what we're going to do is we are actually going to place 2 geographic or geolocated panel bubbles in this particular chapter. First, however, if I play this chapter now, you can see it's completely black. All right. And what we want to do is we want to keep this sky map layer and this earth layer in this particular chapter. Okay. And so there's a couple of ways I could do that. I could just go and right click, load a new clip, and do it just like I had before. But since it's not going to change, okay, I can use the exact same clip. So I'm actually going to copy this clip over to our geolocated panels chapter, okay? And there's a couple of ways I can do that. So I'm going to click on the clip that I want to copy over, and I'm going to go where I want it. I'm going to right click, and I have the option to paste a link or paste a clone. Now this is very important when you are pasting additional clips. When you paste a link, you are pasting an exact replica of that clip. So if you make changes to that clip where you pasted it, okay, the link, it will change it in all of its previous instances, okay? When you paste a clone, you are pasting a new clip that starts exactly like the previous clip. So if you make changes to that clip, then that clip will change in only that instance, not in future instances. So this particular use case, the sky map can be the exact same in both chapters. So I'm just going to paste a link. You'll notice that once I paste the link, the eyeball is on in both chapters, okay? That is how I know it is a link. If I see eyeballs on in other chapters, I know that is linked to some other chapter. Now, I would, in a normal use case, I would use a link for this Earth. as well. But because I want to show the difference between linking and cloning, I'm going to use it as a clone. Okay, so I'm going to come in, I'm going to grab this earth layer. I'm going to come here, I'm going to right click, and I'm going to paste a clone. So now if I come here, you'll see WorldViewer has added _1, and the eyeball is only on in this chapter, not on in this chapter. If you look at the space map, it's called All Sky Space or All Sky Dash 2 Mass. And also in this chapter, it's called All Sky 2 Mass. So if I change something about it here, it will change it here. Okay, so that when using links and chapters, or links and clones, I would say if you're not sure, use a clone. Okay, the what's nice about using links is it's just less clips inside your XML file. So if you build a really large composition, you'd want to use links where you can, but in most instances, it's not going to make a difference. So you could clone everything just to be safe. All right. One of the problems with linking, and I'm going to save because you should save often. So I'm going to click Save As, and this is going to be called World Viewer Training Series. Okay. So here we have now saved it. All right. And I'm going to delete this clip because notice how it says remove clip from chapter, delete clip in children. Okay. If I come up here and click on it, it only gives me the delete option. And if I delete it, it deletes it in both locations. Okay. That is what is dangerous about links. All right. If you end up having to delete it from the chapter you just added it to, then you're going to delete it everywhere else inside of your composition. And so that's why storyboarding ahead of time and knowing what you can link and knowing what you need to clone is very important. So I'm going to reload this so that file comes back. Okay. However, if I was here and it was the only clip in the chapter, okay, I could right click and I could say remove clip from chapter, and then it only removes it from that chapter. Okay. However, if I'm going to repaste the link. If I come somewhere where there's 2 clips in that cell, if I right click, it only gives me the delete clips option because it doesn't know which clip I'm trying to deal with. Okay. And so that is where it gets dangerous when you're using links, because if you put a link in a cell that has other clips in it, there's no way to get it out of there without deleting it, and then you're going to lose it everywhere else that you had it. So in a future chapter, when I dive into more detail, I'll teach you how to make something a template so that if you do have to delete a link, you can put it back in pretty easily. But we won't get into that in today's build. So now that we have our previous content copied over into this chapter, I'm going to come to Panos. I'm going to right click and load a new clip. And I'm going to choose File because this is just a standard 360 video. And I'm going to come to Panos, 4K videos. And I'm going to start with this ice lakes in winter in Croatia. And so what I'm going to do is click Open. And instead of choosing Star Map, which would allow it to wrap around the exterior so that we could view that as a 360 video, I'm going to choose it as a geolocated. And basically, I'm telling WorldViewer, I want it to show up as a tiny little bubble wherever I locate it on Earth. And when I click that bubble, I want you to fly into it, and then it becomes a 360 video that takes over the whole screen. So I'm going to choose geolocated, and I am going to come down to geolocation, and in here I can put the location name. And so this is where I want it located on the map. Right now you can see it's located, here's the little black bubble. It is located on the in Luxor, Egypt, because that is what by default our geolocation sets it as. Okay, I could change this by either changing the latitude and longitude manually, or I can type in the name of the location, and I can get as crazy as typing in a landmark. I can type in a city, a state, an actual address, whatever you need. So we are going to put this just anywhere in Croatia. So I'm just going to say Croatia. And so it's probably going to set it as the capital, would be my guess. So you can see that panel bubble just moved, and now it is up at the top. So if I click the tab button and I come down here so I can interact with this, I see this little panel bubble, right? And if I hover over it, you see how it got larger? So I hover over it, gets larger, okay? And if I click on it, it's actually going to fly me in to play that video. But as you can see, this video looks weird, right? It's not displaying properly. And so the reason for that is this video comes from YouTube, and YouTube's videos are called Equicube, okay? And so when I come to type, I would change it to cube map, and as soon as I do that, you'll see it bounced and it stitched it all together the way it should. So now if I stop and I look around, okay, which I'm doing just by using my arrow keys, I could also do that by coming here, okay, and using the touchscreen interface. The space bar lets me fly out of that geolocated panel bubble, okay? So now that we've been playing it, you can see it's gone from a black dot, okay, to the color of whatever was in that section of video. What I want to do now is I'm going to come down to advanced and preload image, and I'm going to say exactly how it looks now, save that as a screenshot, Croatia, and now when that clip loads, it'll always load with that mark there, okay, or with that imagery. It won't be just a black dot any longer, okay? And so we're going to load another geolocated panel bubble to show how you can load 2 clips in a cell. So I'm just going to right click and I'm going to say load new clip, file, and we're going to navigate to that panel, and we're going to choose exploring the Dolomites from an eagle's view, and we're going to click open. And again, I'm going to render this as a geolocated. So here we are again. Now you can see it showed up automatically in Luxor, Egypt. It's black because it doesn't have a preload image yet. And so what we're going to do is we are going to come to geolocation. And this time I'm just going to use a landmark. I'm going to say Dolomites, which is the mountain range there. And it automatically, as you saw, changed the latitude and longitude, and it's moved that over to the Dolomites, okay, which happens to be very close to Croatia. All right, so they're going to be very close, which is going to make it a little bit more challenging when you're grabbing them. So I would have probably spread this out just a little bit more. And so what I'm going to do is I am going to, even though it's not located in Rome, I'm going to move it to Rome just to get a little bit more distance between those panel bubbles so it's easier to interact with them, okay? So now what we're going to do is I'm going to fly in from the back end this time. Instead of hovering over it and flying in, this time I'm going to fly in from the back end. So I'm going to come to playback controls, and I'm going to say fly to. And while that is happening, I'm going to come to appearance, and we're going to come back to the type, and we're going to change it to cube. And now you'll see that automatically bounced it back in. And so I'm going to minimize this, or I'm sorry, first we need to do our preload. So I'm going to hit save screenshot. I'm going to just name it Dolomites, and I'm going to hit save. And now if I hit that space bar, okay, to get out of this, I could get out with the space bar, or I could come back to controls for playback, and I can uncheck the fly to. If I do that, that does the exact same action as the space bar would. Okay. I am going to move from the geolocated to our picture-in-picture chapter. And so again, I am going to come and I'm going to grab this earth layer, and I am going to this time paste a link because it can be the same. And I'm also going to grab the star map, and I'm going to paste another link. All right. So now if I launch this chapter by hitting the eyeball, we already have our layers in here for the earth and the star map. So all we have to do is add the picture in picture. Okay. And in this particular picture-in-picture video, I'm just going to use some of the video that was played in our demo video reel for WorldViewer. And so I'm going to put this in our picture-in-picture track. So I'm going to right-click, load new clip, just a standard file because it's just a video. And I'm going to come to Flat Media, Movies. And here I have a CE Tool picture-in-picture, which is a video that we created for use in our demo video that was created in WorldViewer. So here I'm going to tell it to render that as a picture-in-picture. So now you'll see it's just kind of showed up in the middle of the screen. It started playing right off of the bat. And so what I'm going to do is come and click on that clip so that I can get it up here and named. Okay. And I am going to minimize this. And I am going to come to Appearance, because this time I want to go to Type, and I want to say Perspective so that it's used it'll appear just like a billboard and be rendered properly and be warped properly. Okay. And so now that I've done that, I'm going to come to Area. Area allows me to move this around the surface where I need it. Okay. I can also resize it by just grabbing these edges here and resizing that video. All right. I could also adjust that video here using these sliders. Okay. I could also move the video around using those sliders. All right. But for this particular use case, I'm just going to have video centered. Okay. And I am going to have it fill a good majority so that somebody could get the experience of our civil engineering tool, or also a video of a picture-in-picture actually on a GeoDome, which you're seeing right here, this portion of the video. This particular installation was a Fall X experiment with Milwaukee, which was really awesome. We had multiple systems there, and we used one of our interactive fly-throughs for like a broomstick trainer, very similar to that of a Harry Potter theme. And I'd encourage you to check that out under our news section of our website. So that is how we would place a picture-in-picture video. Very simple, but it allows you to use flat media content inside of a spherical environment like our geodomes. And so it can be very, very powerful. And the last thing I want to do here is I want to move on to our image sequence, and just so how you could interact with an image sequence. So again, I am going to play our chapter, and I am just going to go ahead and I'm going to paste the links of these two again. All right. And this time, actually, I made a mistake, and this is why links can be dangerous, but I'm going to remove clip from chapter. And in this particular chapter, I am actually going to use this Earth HD. So I am going to just grab that, and I'm going to, grab that and paste a link in here. Okay. And now we have this Earth being used inside of this chapter. Now I want to lay a sequence over that. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click. I'm going to get this cell in Earth Overlays. I'm going to right click, say Load New Clip. This time it's not just a standard file, it's an image sequence. So I need to make sure I choose that. So I'm going to choose Image Sequence. And I am going to come to Earth Overlays, Image Sequence. And let's see, where is the file that I was going to use? For this, I'm just going to use the Seal and Seabird tracks for the Pacific Ocean. So I'm just going to grab the first image in the sequence. You can see this sequence has hundreds of images. Okay, they are PNGs. DDS, PNG, and JPEG will all work. I encourage you to stick with PNG when possible. They are going to a little bit easier to load than the JPEG files are going to be. If you are using the scrubber, which you'll learn about inside of our tutorial on how to build a GUI, then you will see that the need is going to be for a DDS. Okay. And so I'm actually going to use this ping in this section of the video. Our GUI, our advanced GUI, our advanced GUI building will feature a section on how to build a slider, a GUI slider. So I'm going to go ahead and open, and now it's saying, how do you want to render this image sequence? Do I want it to be in the background like the star map? Do I want it to be an Earth overlay, which is exactly what we want? So we're going to go ahead and choose Earth overlay. And now you can see that image sequence is being played on this Earth overlay. Okay. And so if I come over to that section, you'll see the sequence playing. You can see it coming and the tracks going. And there is our image sequence. Now, this particular image sequence is just going to continue to loop and loop and loop and loop until I tell it to stop or until somebody leaves that chapter. Under our playback controls, you have the ability to decide how a video or an image sequence is treated. And so here you could say that it loops. You could say go forward, then backward, then forward, then backward. You can say once it plays once, pause it. Okay. And you could say once it plays once, hide it. And so it's going to go away at the end of this. There we go. So it really depends on the experience that you're creating. Additionally, I can change the frames per second. So I could slow this down if I wanted. Okay. And I could speed it up. And I can do that by changing the frame rate. I can also do that by changing the playback rate. So this was starting at, I want to say 30 frames per second. And so if I wanted it to play 60 frames per second, I could just change the playback rate to 2. And both of those would be easy ways that you could handle this. Okay. This particular data set is from Science on a Sphere. Again, you can learn about all of the different Science on a Sphere data sets by downloading the Science on a Sphere browser from our web asset store. I just want to remind everybody how I was controlling this system was through the back end by clicking on these eyeballs. In true Elumenati fashion, our show and hide is our eyeball, the all-seeing eye. And so when you click on an eyeball, it turns it on and off. And you can do that both with clips and with chapters. And so that is really all we're going to do for our basic building a composition.